I must warn you, what you're about to see is a complete mess. Welcome to our junk room. And when I say junk, the stuff in here is not junk, but this room has just become the catch-all. Y'all know that we just bought this house, and this is where everything has gone to live that we don't know what to do with, including my cowboy boots. And yes, I know this is an excessive amount of cowboy boots, but I'm done with the dramatic pauses. My husband is building me beautiful boot shelves, and here's how he did it.
All right, so the first thing that you need to do is to cut out your main boards for each shelf. And so in this video, I'm gonna make 3 6-foot long shelves because she has a lot of boots. But you, of course, can repeat the same exact process and just make it to the dimensions that you need for your space or for your home. But I'll go ahead and put the materials that I used and the exact cut list for this project down in the description. So if you want to make exactly what we made in this video, all those details will be in the description. But like I said, the first step is to cut your main shelf boards, which I used a 2x12, and I cut 3 of these at 6 feet long. And the next step is to make the shelf brackets. To do this, I went ahead and took 2x4s and ripped them in half, making them 1 3/4 inches each. And I do this just because it's cheaper. I take one 2x4 and rip it in half, and that gets me 2 8-foot long boards that I can cut up into little blocks to make brackets. But if you don't have a table saw or you don't want to try to do this, then you can just buy a 2x2 from the hardware store, and that'll save you this step. After getting a couple of my brackets ripped in half, I went ahead and just used a sample 2x12 and went ahead and made a mock-up of what I wanted this bracket to look like. And so basically I just tapered with 45-degree angles away from the shelf on the top and the bottom, and then I laid out another one of those 2x2s across the two of them, and I marked it with a pencil to get that right angle. And I cut that out. And so I ended up liking how this looked, and I am showing you here how I'm going to fasten it to the wall and then to the shelf. After you get your bracket mocked up and exactly how you want it, I ended up just tracing each of those 3 pieces over and over again and cutting those out until I had enough brackets for the shelves that I was building. I needed 3 of those brackets for each of my 3 shelves, so I made 9 of these brackets. And the next step is to give everything a nice sanding. And so you want to make sure you get rid of all of the rough spots to the touch, and then also those like manufacturer prints or labels. Make sure to sand all of that off because that will show up after you stain your finished shelves. Next, I use something called a Kreg jig to drill a pocket hole into one end of the brackets, and this is how I'm going to attach the brackets together. And so if you're not familiar with this, it basically is just a jig that drills a pocket hole like that gives you the perfect angle to attach these 2 things at a right angle. I attached the 2 end pieces of the bracket, and then for that center piece of the bracket, I used my Ryobi nail gun. And this is what they ended up looking like. After getting the brackets done, I went ahead and snubbed off those harsh points, and I think that this looked better, but that's totally just a preference thing. You don't have to do that part. And so after I got those all done, I went ahead and took these inside and got started staining each of the brackets and the boards. And so I went with a Minwax stain called Early American. I use Early American on all kinds of projects, and basically just like any other project that I've shared on our channel, I just use a old throwaway rag and I wipe the stain on and get it in all the cracks and basically wipe off any excess stain. After you get everything stained and you let it dry overnight, one of the final and last steps for this project is your clear coat or your sealer. And so in this video, I'm using a product that's called a triple thick polyacrylic or polyurethane. And basically it is exactly what it says. It's triple thick, and so it takes less coats than it normally does. And so highly recommend that product, especially since it's about the same price as any other polyurethane. I think that it really does save you time because you have to do less coats. And so basically this is a water-based product. So I just use my regular paintbrush. I brush it onto all of the brackets. And then next I'm going to do the same exact thing for all of the long boards. After that clear coat dries, you'll want to take a sanding block or a high grit sandpaper and sand it all down in between coats, and then repeat that last step and do another coat. I usually do this about 3 or 4 times or until I get a nice smooth finish that feels good to the touch. The last step for this project was to install the boot shelves. And so I started with my stud finder, marking all of the studs on the wall that we wanted to hang it on. I took the first bracket and screwed a 3-inch construction screw through the bracket board into the wall, into the stud. So after I had one of those brackets installed, I used my level, made sure that it was level. I went over to the next stud that made sense and made a mark so I knew where to put the next bracket. And so I basically repeated that step for all 3 of these brackets on all 3 of these shelves. And so after I got all 3 brackets installed, made sure they were level, next I put on the top boards for the shelves. I went ahead and used my tape measure to make sure that they were evenly spaced out on the left and the right from the brackets. And so once I got them exactly where they were supposed to be, I went ahead and pre-drilled from the underneath of these brackets and put a screw into each of the brackets into that top board just to hold these down. I think that these boot shelves turned out great. They really didn't take long at all to build, and I think that these are super easy. Anyone could do it. But last but not least, I'll have to pass it back over to Emily because these are her boot shelves, and I'll let her do the honors.
And for the best part of this project for me was getting those boots off the floor and onto the shelves. I love these so much, y'all, and the good thing with this shelf is that it's so customizable. You could make these as short or as long as you want them to be. They would be beautiful, a little bit shorter in a kitchen with dishes and decor. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one.